Okay, welcome to another edition of the Defiant Weekly Recap. This is live on our YouTube channel and it's also posted on our podcast platforms. So you guys can also catch up on what we discussed. This week was pretty eclectic, I guess. There were news from all different fronts, from the centralized crypto world with Coinbase launching Coinbase International. There was Bitcoin taking off with all sorts of activity happening on the original cryptocurrency. There was markets action with a new Fed decision. And of course, we still have meme coins haven't faded away with Binance listing PEPE. On the NFT front, Blur launched an NFT lending pool. So yeah, tons going on. I'm Cami Russo, the founder of the Defiant. We have YYC Trader here, our Anon head of news. So welcome, YYC. I think why don't we just start with Pepe? And I think you're the most qualified to talk about meme coins. And I know you were looking at some interesting charts. So why don't you kick us off?
Sure. Thanks everyone for joining us. And of course, you might have noticed that gas has been going crazy for the last few days. Currently above 200. I think I haven't seen that since, I don't know, it's been months, right? And you can see who the culprits are. Uniswap, which means meme coins, both on, I mean, V2 is mainly meme coins, I'd say. And then, of course, we have the Arbitrum sequencer, Pepe token, of course. And Jared from Subway is still around. Our friendly MEV bot has been making a killing over the last 2 or 3 weeks, millions of dollars in from sandwich attacking all these meme coin transactions. And looking at the coin itself, I mean, you can see where Binance listed it, right?
What a
1.6
crazy chart.
billion
Oh
dollar
Incredible.
FDV. And if we zoom out to the daily chart, it looks
It's
even crazier.
insane. I mean, that's not even hockey stick. That's, I don't know what it is. Like, we need a new term.
Yeah. And guess where I sold it? Right here.
Of course.
Oh,
we,
man.
we keep saying we need an inverse YYC token.
Yep. But I mean, hats off to people who managed to hold it this long and actually, were able to cash in on the mania, if you want to call it that, because it's easy to get into something early, but holding it is harder. I mean, as hard, if not harder. When something's like a meme coin, when it suddenly hits 100 million market cap, you'd be like, I need to sell this, right? Or at least a good chunk of it. But there's apparently so many wallets that just bought it really cheap and sat on it until now. So that's just, I mean, insane. I wouldn't be able to do that, to be honest.
Those are the hardcore degens out there.
Yeah. I mean, like, how do you see something, go from, like, I don't know, a couple of $100 to say 500K and say, no, I'm not going to sell any of this. I'm going to wait till it hits 3 million or 5 million or something. That's just, but
This is insane. I think it's worth just stepping back and like discussing where the actual value of this comes from. I mean, it is just a joke, right? It's a token that has like a Pepe face on it and just like a community making jokes around this meme, and that's pretty much it. Like, there's no utility to it, there's no protocol backing it, there's no fees attached, not even a plan to have that down the line that I know of, right? So it's just about buying something that you think is going to take off, and about the culture, I guess, even if that sounds cringy. But I think there is some legitimacy to that. It's just, you think something is funny and you want to be a part of it. And it's as simple as that, I guess.
I mean, I'm just coping really hard today, just because. I mean, I did the exact same thing with Shib when it came out, right? I faded it because like this thing is like I couldn't understand it. Like I was just like I didn't see the if you want to call it an investment case for putting money into it. And then day by day, week by week, it was the same thing. It just kept going higher and higher and higher. And all you see on Twitter is like people with screenshots. Oh, I turned like zero point 0.1 ETH into 1,000 ETH and like stuff like that. Ah,
I
but
mean,
yeah,
it's easy to have FOMO, but also, I mean, we need to point out that this stuff is extremely risky. Even if some people do make some money, we don't know like how much money they've lost on other shit coins. um, and the ones that take off are a small percentage of the ones that either fail or are scams or are rugging people. So it's just I think it's really worth highlighting how risky a corner of the crypto market meme coins and shit coins are. Like they really have no kind of financial uh, use case or utility or anything other than the joke and the meme, which is worth something, to be fair. But it's about how long will this community and fad last in the end. I mean, and there, like, Doge, I think, is a great example of a joke that has real staying power. Like, it's one of the first cryptocurrencies, and it's still around. It's still, what, top 10? No, I don't know, top 20 at least, right?
it
In
was at one
market cap?
point. It might be again,
Yeah,
but
yeah, top 9 coin,
yeah.
and it's a meme
Um,
coin. So, but most of
don't
them
let
will just
the
fade
ship
away.
crew let you hear that.
Hmm.
They're looking to unseat Doge in the next cycle, I guess, right? But yeah, one well side effect apart from the fact that it like Ethereum mainnet is essentially unusable for anything right now, is that we've been burning ETH like crazy. So as you can see on this chart, I mean, it's just this is since the merge, and you can see that the curve has just steepened over the last couple of weeks, right? And overall burnt, I mean, 158,000 ETH compared to 2.5 million that would have been issued under proof of work. So, I mean, that's a drastic reduction in supply, right? And if we change the scale and just look at the last week, it's been quite a hefty burn, right? So, this is all meme coins, pretty
I
much.
mean, yeah, meme coins are benefiting every ETH holder in the end. So
Yep.
everyone
So
holding it should be grateful.
yes, so even though I don't hold Pepe, I'm like, all right, keep burning that ETH. It's all right. At least it feeds
Right.
some. It's feeds one of the narratives I'm in, right? So it's good.
Yeah.
So it's not just Pepe. A few of the others have also done really well over the last week. So AI Doge is, the meme coin that launched on Arbitrum, and we had a story on that as well. Again, just gone nuts. If we look at the daily chart again, is not as extreme as Pepe, but yeah, 170 million valuation for essentially, I don't know, nothing. But who knows? Shiba Inu came out with like Shib Swap and like I think their own chain and all kinds of things, right? So you never know. These guys might come out and do something. And of course, there was Turbo as well, which was yeah, living up to its name at least today,
Wow.
right? So yeah, and a bunch of other ones as well. So I mean, the whole watch list is full of just. Guac was one on Solana that launched yesterday that did really well.
Whack. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Are we back to food themed
Um,
coins?
I think anything at this point. There's a taco as well. I think food is making its way to Solana, 2 years later, but better late than never, right?
for those of you who weren't around for DeFi Summer, we had a whole food uh, yield farming craze. There was tendies, like spaghetti,
Yam,
like, yeah. Well, yeah, yam was like right the one that kicked everything off.
yeah, pickle,
Yeah,
which was
there
my
was
first DeFi project.
interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah. Anyway, so it looks like food is making its way back. Uh, let's take a minute to answer some of the questions here. So, Charlie Pepper is asking, how do I buy Pepe on Binance? Do I convert my BEP20 to something else? Will the listing just show up somewhere?
Um, Generally, you just send your tokens to Binance, and you should be able to swap them for Pepe. It should be on the new listings page or somewhere. Again, not advised to buy Pepe at all, especially given the run that it's had. As Cami said, this is the riskiest corner of crypto, I'd say, and the one that kind of gives it a bad name at times, because this is what, when people say, "Oh, crypto is just a gambling den of thieves," like Senator Warren, this is what she's talking about, like, you
Yeah.
know. So, yeah, it does exist. I mean, it always kind of runs in the background. It's just come to the forefront because of a few coins that have done well. Otherwise, it's a dark forest of rugs, scams, you know. So, yeah, definitely do your own research, and I'd advise staying away from them if you're not willing to see that ETH go to zero.
Yeah. Okay, and then Hikikomori. I'm so sorry, I'm probably mispronouncing this. But if Pepe is doing this to ETH in the bear, what do you think will happen in bull? Do you think this is sustainable?
I think we've seen this a number of times over the last year and a half that, ETH has somewhat, I mean, 1559 has some balanced it quite well. So it just takes a little bit of activity to spike fees and suddenly start burning a lot of ETH. We saw that with the Zen token, which dropped, I think it was August or September last year, where it was the same thing. People suddenly started minting these NFTs, by the boatload, and we spiked gas. And this is just one project. Obviously, there are going to be more upgrades. We just have a story on the uh, next upcoming upgrade for Ethereum, which is expected, I think, beginning of 2024. So that's going to bring in sharding and focus on scaling, essentially, to bring down transaction fees. So in terms of the next bull, I mean, are we in it already? Are we looking for the next halving next year? So if it's going to be next year or later, we'd likely have this upgrade in place already, right? So
Mm.
uh, probably won't burn as much ETH, but we can hope, right? Ultrasound money to 10K.
Right. And then the same community member is saying Pepe value, Sui, Arbitrum are for VCs, and Pepe is for the people. So just interesting comment on Pepe.
Um,
So
in terms of
yeah.
Pepe, just wanted to add there
Mhm.
have been some threads and things about who are the people behind it, and like
Mm.
there are a ton of early wallets that got big allocations really cheap and are sitting on a ton of profits. So I wouldn't say it's for all the people, definitely the early people.
Mm.
Um, yeah, but yeah, with Sui, we have a story on that as well, right?
Yeah.
About um, people basically being disappointed that there was no substantial airdrop, and even the pre-sale was quite hard to get into. And yeah, of course, people who got in made 10x or more, uh, because the project has a valuation of 13 billion, which is more than Aptos, Solana, or Polygon, or Avalanche, for that matter, in terms of FDV.
Mhm.
So definitely rich. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's the first, I guess, not the first. I mean, Aptos came ahead, but I still really haven't seen much in terms of DeFi or applications and things on these move-based blockchains. I mean, I'm sure they're building, but nothing in the mainstream quite yet. So
Yeah.
I think, yeah, those are some ecosystems that we'll need to dive into. Maybe send some of the reporters on a hunt.
Right. For sure. I mean, it's still so early, right? Sui just launched on mainnet. We have the story this week. It's still so crazy to me that this blockchain that's just launching, no users, no dApps or anything, has a $13 billion valuation. It's insane. But I guess people are trusting that, the former Facebook devs know what they're doing. So, anyways, this token was and just Sui was picking up steam this week with the mainnet launch. But yeah, there's a comment from Arthur from Defiant Capital, and he said almost all founders of hyped L1s in past cycles are billionaires now, despite little real traction achieved in their blockchains. And yeah, I definitely think that's a fair criticism. These lofty valuations, even during the bear market, is pretty remarkable. Okay, and then moving on to another big headline this week, we had Coinbase launching its international exchange. So, this, as we've covered before here, comes on the backdrop of this regulatory fight with the SEC. So earlier this year, the SEC sent Coinbase a Wells notice, kind of giving them a heads up that a lawsuit is on its way. Coinbase then sued the SEC, and because it's asking for more clarity on the regulatory environment in the U.S., specifically what tokens are and aren't considered securities. So it's within this backdrop of just tightening regulatory environment in the U.S. that Coinbase is launching an exchange offshore, and the main vehicle that's going to be traded there are derivatives with perpetuals, which perpetuals are make up the majority of volume in crypto. So it's a market that Coinbase definitely wants to be involved in, and hasn't been able to because they are based in the US. So just a sign that the US will just start lagging behind activity and innovation in crypto if it maintains its unfriendly regulatory regime. What do you think, YYC?
Absolutely. I think perpetual swaps is a very lucrative business. Um, Exchanges kill to get a piece of that pie, which is, I mean, most of the volume that you see in crypto is perpetuals on
Mhm.
Binance, Bybit, and all
Yeah,
these
I
places,
think it's like
right?
75%, like real, a
Yeah,
big
yeah.
chunk of
So
it.
Coinbase, I'm sure, wants to get into that game, and uh, they've tried every option, every avenue they have to do it from within the US, and I think they have no choice. If they want to get into the business, they have to do it from overseas. So
Yeah,
um, I think there are multiple exchanges, right, that are following the same kind of playbook.
exactly. We have Gemini also launched a non-US derivatives platform outside of the US. Kraken registered a subsidiary in Ireland last month. Remember that Kraken also came under the eye of the SEC. Was it this year or last year? Like, I don't know. You enter in this time warp in crypto. But anyways, the Kraken was forced to shut down its staking service in the US. So they're opening a subsidiary elsewhere. So these are just three examples, but they are the biggest exchanges in the US, and they're opening offices and operations offshore, Coinbase, Gemini, and Kraken. So it is pretty notable. Yeah, the US shooting itself on the foot.
Yeah, in years' time, every exchange will just be sitting in Dubai.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, all their customers are there already, so they might as well.
Yeah. And then moving on to Bitcoin. So yeah, we've seen this like pickup in activity around Bitcoin. I think it's such an interesting story. For so long, Bitcoin has been seen as digital gold, and this just like very stable, ossified blockchain that doesn't change or do much, and that was kind of argued as its actual value. But now there's real innovation and experimentation going on, and it's thanks to a couple of different upgrades to the Bitcoin blockchain. So SegWit and Taproot have allowed developers to add metadata to tokens, and so that just allows more creativity into kind of what developers can build on top of Bitcoin. So we've reported on ordinals, which is a protocol that allowed people to mint NFTs, and on top of ordinals, this week BRC20s started taking off. So of course this is going off of ERC20, which is Ethereum's token standard. So I mean, for background, like Ethereum didn't used to have a token standard. This was invented very early on in Ethereum's history, and because this came after the launch of Ethereum, ETH itself is not an ERC20 token, which is pretty interesting. But having a standard token really facilitated composability on Ethereum. So this means that any token that's issued can be interchanged with any other tokens that's following the same standard. So this kind of really blew up with the ICO craze in 2017, and since then, I think the large majority of tokens issued on Ethereum are ERC20s. Now Bitcoin has its own token standard. It looks like BRC20, and these tokens are being issued on the ordinals protocol. So super interesting stuff. Like minting coins has been something that developers on Bitcoin have been trying to do since 2014 with colored coins. And that's where Vitalik was kind of working and got the initial idea for Ethereum, actually working with the colored coins team. So colored coins try to do these tokens on Bitcoin, but back then the technology wasn't there yet. Like you couldn't have these like inscriptions, like metadata inscriptions that you can have now thanks to Taproot and SegWit. So I think this might be a start of a new wave of activity in Bitcoin. Who knows? But it's definitely interesting, and it's really spurred activity on the chain. So transactions on Bitcoin were at an all-time high on May 1st, thanks to BRC20s and ordinals. And the other interesting development for Bitcoin is that the transaction value, the median transaction value, has really dropped since these new token types came about, because people are using it to mint tokens, send them around, and just play a bit on Bitcoin, and not just send Bitcoin itself, which was usually a larger transactions. So, anyways, the median transaction value is dropping with these innovations. So this is definitely a thing that we will keep an eye out on the Defiant and see if it's actually something that has legs or not. Yeah. What do you think, Webisi? Are you interested in Bitcoin, or is that kind of too stable for you? Or Webisi is head of news, but he's also our DGen in chief. So I don't know how you feel about Bitcoin.
I mean, honestly, I missed the launch of ordinals because I was on vacation, right? So, um, and when I got back, they had already kind of taken off, and I felt like I was too late and I had missed the boat, so never really investigated it. And now, like, it seems like every week there's something new that's being built on top of ordinals, and I still don't really get how it works because I don't think you can actually trade these tokens like you would on Uniswap just yet, right? It's a clunky process. I think it's still a lot of OTC trading involved and stuff, which was one of the things that put me off, like those Bitcoin punks that came out to begin with, because there was an Excel sheet being circulated with like token numbers and prices, and you had to just trust the broker in between to like not keep your Bitcoin or ETH. So yeah, um, but it's great to see that there hasn't been too much. I mean, there has been some resistance from hardcore maxis that this is against the Bitcoin ethos, and you shouldn't be touching. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So, uh, but in terms of actual utility, I think it's great. Um, it'll be fascinating to follow this thread and see, if this actually takes off or if it's just kind of a flash in the pan
Yeah.
kind of
Yep.
thing. Yeah.
Interesting about you mentioned Uniswap, and I remember that we reported on this other project called Trustless Computer, which builds itself as a layer one on Bitcoin. And it looks like it allows developers to build smart contract applications using Solidity, the Ethereum coding language. So that's pretty interesting. And they actually deployed a Uniswap fork on this kind of layer one on Bitcoin. So I don't know. There's some indication there that that trading might become easier on on Bitcoin of these BRC20 tokens, but we'll see.
How do they already have a market cap of like 100 million plus? I mean, 100 million really doesn't mean what it used to, right? Even 10
Right.
years ago, right? Back then, like 100 million was like, whoa, that's real money. Now, unless it's in the billions or tens of billions, it's like, oh, all right.
Yeah, this market has become big, and we've become immune to this, these big figures, I guess. And then moving on to TradFi, there was a Fed decision this week, and with a 25 basis point hike, but Jay Powell hinted at a potential halt in interest rate increases going forward if the data backs it up. I mean, if there are signs that the economy is slowing. I don't know if all these banking failures and banking crisis in the U.S., if that will have any impact on their decision, on the Fed's decision going forward. I don't believe it's like in their mandate to look at that. Like they just look at inflation really to decide on interest rate hikes. But I don't know, like you have to think that they're still looking at all these banks failing because of their interest rate hikes. What do you think, Wewesi?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I watched the press conference after the decision, and
Mm-hmm.
Powell just he looked. You could see like he looked. I wouldn't say stressed, but like he was a bit short with some of the reporters who were asking him questions. And like, it was pretty clear that a pause is on the table because people tried to get him to confirm, is this a pause? And he just kept saying, the language has changed, and that's significant, and we're going to watch the data. And the next question would be a variation of the same thing, and he would just go back and forth. We're going to watch the data, stuff like that. um, do you know he is the worst FOMC chairman for the markets? He has the worst track record. So
Wow.
after the Fed decision is announced and his press conferences, the stock market generally tends to drop 0.2 to 0.3%. The previous ones like Yellen, Bernanke, and stuff, they were all like very charming for the markets, right? All had positive performance post press conference. But Powell, every time he opens his mouth, the market just doesn't like it.
Well, I mean, it makes sense. Like, he's the first chair in how long? I don't know, since 2008 that has had the job of hiking instead of cutting. So I guess, like, of course, the markets don't like him.
Yeah, I mean, but Yellen did some hiking of her own, right? Back in like 2015,
True.
16 or whatever, whenever it was. And yeah, I think he just looks uncomfortable, answering questions. So I think it's the demeanor that doesn't like portray confidence, certainty. Like Bernanke used to come and spout absolute nonsense, but he would do it with authority, so the markets would like it and say, all right, he knows what he's talking about.
Oh, interesting. You think people don't trust that he knows what he's doing?
I think that is one factor because number one, he's not an economist by training, right? I believe he's a lawyer, right? And like politically appointed, whatnot. Like previous Fed chair people have all been like finance, economics background. So I think that's one thing. And he always sounds like he's reading from, a canned
Teleprompter.
script. Like he never goes off book ever. Like even like if it's an interesting question or something, he'd still like find a way to circle back to his prepared notes, and that's it.
Yeah, annoying. So, but what do you think? Do you think we'll see a pause?
I think so. Yeah, I think this was just because the markets already expected it was like a 85% pricing in of this last hike. I think that's why they went ahead and did it. And yeah, going forward, they say they're going to be data dependent, right?
Right.
So if the banking crisis worsens, you see some more dominoes falling. I think where are we at now? Four, right?
4 banks, yeah.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, over the summer, it's going to be interesting, I think, to see. I think a June hike is definitely off the table. So they're going to be, they're either going to stay with what it is, or a cut is probably unlikely in June. But according to the FedWatch tool, September and December could see cuts. So, and all this should be positive for risk assets as a whole, right? Because
Right.
traditionally you'd expect, okay, if rates stay the same or go lower, then the dollar should depreciate relative to other currencies, Bitcoin, crypto, what have you.
Yeah, and there's just more money going around, right? To
Yeah,
buy
absolutely.
crypto and risk assets.
Yeah, and the dollar traditionally, like at least over the 15, 18 years that I've been trading and watching it, doesn't usually like to stay above 100. Like that's like its uncomfortable zone, right? Like it spikes there during times of crisis or rate hikes or whatnot, but then it kind of always finds a way to settle back down into the 90s. Um, yeah, so it'll be interesting to see if that happens again.
Yeah. So yeah, obviously, something important to watch macro and how it affects crypto. I mean, that has been the the main driver of the crypto market for the past year. But as we reported here, that's kind of changing now with Bitcoin decoupling from stocks. So Bitcoin is becoming less correlated with stocks. I thought this was such an interesting development. I mean, last year with the Fed rate hikes, Bitcoin and crypto and stocks had really just reacted in tandem, falling together with a tighter macro environment. But that correlation is is sliding right now, and it looks like while stocks continue, underperforming or falling because of macro and because of the continued rate hikes, Bitcoin has been overperforming stocks. So that has made the correlation or like both assets decouple. So some theories to this is as we are seeing the effects of this tighter macro environment with the banking crisis fallout, Bitcoin is looking like digital gold. Like it's looking like the safe haven that it was meant to be. And so, all those calls last year saying, Bitcoin is just another risk asset. It was supposed to protect against inflation and like volatile markets, but it just reacts just like stocks. Those may have been it may have been too early to have actually concluded that because it maybe this year as people are looking at the traditional markets become more unstable, traditional finance become unstable, maybe some people are going to Bitcoin as a safe haven. And the same is happening with gold. So it's actually, while the correlation between Bitcoin and stocks is declining, correlation between Bitcoin and gold is increasing. So really, fascinating what's going on here.
Yeah, gold's been, I mean, it's testing its old all-time highs, right? Above $2,000 an ounce. And it's so funny, actually. Last week, I got a few messages from, some friends who I had got into gold like 5, 7, 8 years ago, maybe. Um, because, giving them the same spiel about, money printing and whatnot. This was before I got into crypto and stuff. So they're like, oh, you know what? Like gold's like been going crazy. Like how's your gold like stocks and stuff doing? And I haven't even looked at it in like 3.5 years. Right. So I was like, oh, you know what, guys? Like, oh, I should really take a look. Once you get into crypto and like if you're working in crypto and like in it full time, it's it's like literally living in your own bubble, right? You barely um, even notice like big moves like this.
And so what happened? Like, are you still holding your gold stocks?
Yeah, that's like
Nice.
the TradFi, retirement portfolio. So it's part of that.
Nice.
Yeah, the doomsday portfolio, if we want to call it
Doomsday
that.
portfolio. Right. So, early to say, but maybe Bitcoin is serving as this hedge against instability in traditional finance. It is certainly metrics are certainly pointing that direction. So we'll see. But going back to the topic of Powell and how he's handled rate hikes, 4 banks failing in just a couple of months, in weeks, really, that has to signal that he's not doing a good job. That the rate hikes were too fast, that it wasn't communicated clearly, because like you can't have like a reaction like that's as disastrous as it has been. I don't know. I think that kind of speaks for itself on whether the Fed is doing a good job or not.
Yeah, there's actually an interesting graphic that I just shared with you. If you could put that up, these bank failures, if you compare them to the ones from the financial crisis in terms of scale, are so massive. Oh, you aren't able to see that? Sorry, one second. I should be able to get that. Yeah, in terms of scale, let me see if I can just. Can you see that?
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. So in '08 we had, like, of course, like tons and tons of bank failures, but like Washington Mutual was the one big, like, consumer facing bank that collapsed, right? But yeah, so if these are just the first dominoes, and a true full blown banking crisis would really look bad. Like, that's not something that any of us should you know hope for or even wish for, as proponents of crypto. I've seen a lot of that sentiment on Twitter lately, like, oh, every time a bank collapses, Bitcoin pumps, so that's good. But yeah, these are relatively small and not systemically important institutions that have fallen over so far. So yeah, we definitely don't want to see a big one go down.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So maybe this was the last hike in a while, and we'll see a pause until things stabilize. Fingers crossed. Like, we definitely don't want to see another crisis of that scale. And if these were the first dominoes and they're already in scale larger than '08, then it doesn't look good. I'll just go through the rest of the bigger headlines that we had this week, and then we're coming close to the hour, so we'll have to wrap up. But in the NFT front, this was really interesting. Blur, this NFT marketplace, launched a lending protocol. Sotheby's launched an NFT marketplace as well. We covered the Sui blockchain launched its mainnet. Ethereum is in its final stages of the next major upgrade. This is Dan Kuhn. And the biggest thing here is that it will include EIP 4844, also known as Proto Dank Sharding, which is such a cool name. Sounds very cypherpunk, but what it means is effectively it'll make layer 2 transactions process faster. And then finally, Curve deployed its stablecoin CRV USD on Ethereum, and that pushed the Curve token to rally. So yeah, those were the main headlines that we had this week on the Defiant. As always, we're covering the most interesting developments in DeFi, Web3, and crypto. So make sure that you are subscribed to our newsletter, to our YouTube channel. Oh, that reminds me, on our YouTube, we had a kind of like social media themed week. We had the Web3 social media landscape explained with the top 9 projects there. And we had an interview on our podcast with Nader from Lens. So you should all go and check it out. And with that, we'll wrap up and wish everyone a great Friday and an amazing weekend. Thanks, YYC, for joining. And thanks, everyone. Bye.